And welcome to tonight's edition of the One Hood Power Hour. I am your co-host, Kahari Mosley, here with Miracle Jones. And our primary election candidate series continues on tonight. We have two more incredibly impressive candidates. As we talked about over the past several weeks, me and Miracle have been incredibly impressed with the crop of candidates. And tonight is no different. We have two of the candidates running in the Democratic primary in the 19th legislative district. We have Aerion Abney and Reverend Glenn Grayson, who will be joining us in the next few minutes. And we will be talking about all the important issues to those in the 19th legislative district and around the city of Pittsburgh. But before we get into that, Miracle, there's a lot of stuff going on. There was a candidate forum for the U.S. Senate on the Democratic side, and one of the prominent candidates, the candidate considered the front runner, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, did not make that event, and it basically became about him and his absence. Do you have any thoughts, and has this, crossed your radar over the last few days? There's been a lot of talk about it.
Yes, there's been a lot of talk about people's participation in various candidate forums because this is like the first year where people have really strayed away from attending forums, whether in person or digitally, for a variety of reasons. We saw a group of conservatives come out and say that they weren't attending any forums if there weren't registered Republicans as moderators. And so it's become a very contentious issue because these forums are a way for people to ask questions, for people to defend their records. And again, as we head into the May 17th primary, people really want to see those who are running for office, to see how their temperatures flare, how they handle asking the hard questions, what they do to distinguish themselves from their other peers who are also running. And so I know a lot of people were disappointed with not being able to have conversations with Lieutenant Governor, but hopefully, everything is okay with him, health-wise, and he participates in a lot of these forums going forward.
Yeah, there's a story in the Allentown Morning Call that mentions it, and then the debate took place in Allentown, Pennsylvania, in the eastern part of the state, and basically Congressman Lamb and State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, basically made the event about aspiring to be senator, but current Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman's absence. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. As we talked about a couple weeks ago, there was a memo that was shared by Politico that was a independent political action committee that is in support of Congressman Lamb's candidacy, put out a memo basically saying that Congressman Lamb has to go negative due to a sizable lead, at least in current polling, that Lieutenant Governor Fetterman enjoys up to this point. So we will see, how that all plays out, and if Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman's lead can be sustained over the next month or so, because we are getting closer and closer to the primary election. So, anything else in political news you'd like to share that's happened over the weekend?
Yeah, we're still winding down to see who our final representatives are going to be. Just this week, we're going to have the finalization of the legislative candidates, because the period to challenge signatures is going to be over, and so that's going to be very excited. We're also winding down to see what the city and county and also school board maps and districts are going to look like. The city just had a meeting last week. And so that's also the last thing that people are going to need to be paying attention to because, again, because of redistricting, all of the maps are changing, even though some of the stuff is pretty much like laid out and people are talking about what their future districts are going to look like. There's still a couple of moments to give public comment about that. So also, we've talked a lot about redistricting at the Commonwealth level, but to remind people that's also happening here locally. And so to just be mindful and just be prepared because I think there's going to be some significant changes when those maps are revealed in the coming days.
Yeah, and another big thing, this week, the Senate will vote on Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's nomination to the Supreme Court. So this could be a very historic week for the United States. We may see the first African American woman seated on the Supreme Court. So that should be very exciting. It looks like it's going to be a very close vote, but Senator from Maine, Susan Collins, did announce that she was going to support Judge Jackson. So it looks like there will be at least one Republican vote in support. Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey has said that he will be a no vote.
Yeah, that's correct. And there's still ample time for people to reach out to the senator. He is, of course, retiring at the end of his term. And so Pennsylvanians can possibly, benefit from having Judge Jackson on the court. We know that there is huge disparate impact among our criminal justice system, and the judge being a former public defender is something that really would impact the lives of Pennsylvanians. So there are time to reach out to Senator Toomey to talk about the vote. And then also, while we're on the subject, this weekend, some of us had the unfortunate opportunity to be in Homewood at the student-led memorial and rally protests for Day Day, who was a 15-year-old who was shot while riding his bike. And the students, his classmates, and some of his friends threw a rally to not only protest his death, but to honor him and call for a stop to violence, just because they have not been supported. They have not been getting the resources that they needed, not only to mourn their friend, but to also process his tragic loss and the loss they have experienced just, in this short 6 months that school has been open. And so we also just wanted to support them, amplify their voices, and just a reminder that no child should really be having to throw a protest to honor their friend because the adults in their lives are failing to do so. So also wanted to talk about that from this weekend.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And definitely our condolences go out to the family and all those affected. And the last thing I did want to mention was an interesting thing that came up on Friday. Congress voted to decriminalize marijuana, and Representative Connor Lamb, who voted against that bill in 2020, actually voted in favor of it this Friday. So folks were taking note of that and wondering if that was something that had to do with the 2022 midterm elections.
Yeah, and it's been an ongoing issue because now we've seen for the past 3 weeks, Governor Wolf, who is the governor of Pennsylvania, has really been advocating for the legalization of adult use. And it's very fitting that we're having this conversation because one of the people who was spearheading that initiative locally was Representative Jake Wheatley. And so to see people really come full circle and push for this is very important because, again, we know that whether we look at what happened in Michigan or what's going on in Colorado, having legalization of adult use really impacts the way people are able to navigate legal systems. And of course, it has a disparate impact on particularly Black and Brown communities here in Pennsylvania. And so that legalization vote is so key and so important. It's also due to support from a lot of the unions. Representative Lamb has been really trying to talk about how he's a moderate, but he's also a compassionate moderate. And this was a vote that really was going to like help him deliver home that message, because again, he had been vocally opposed to any type of legalization issue, had voted no multiple times prior. And so to see this pivot, I think it's not only because of the election this year, but goes to show how important it has been to really educate leaders about why legalization is so important.
Thank you for that. So now we are going to get to the part of our show that you all been waiting for. This is, I think, the third or fourth in our series of primary candidate forums, and we're very excited to bring two really impressive people on. I will start with the bios, cover both bios, and then we'll bring both candidates in. We'll start in alphabetical order with Mr. Aerion Abney, a native of Philadelphia, came to Pittsburgh to attend college, lives in Manchester, has a bachelor's degree in communications, a master's degree in social work from the University of Pittsburgh. I'm serving as Pennsylvania Director for Special Projects for a national voting rights organization. Before that, was a program officer with the Poise Foundation, and is married to his wife Tamara and have two young sons, Arius and Amari. And now moving to Reverend Glenn Grayson, is a native of Brooklyn. Attended Livingstone College, has a Master of Divinity from Hood Theological Seminary in Salisbury, North Carolina. Completed a year-long residency in clinical pastoral education from the Carolina Medical Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. In 1996, was appointed pastor of Wesley AME Zion Church, located in the Hill District. In 2000, he founded a nonprofit, the Center That Cares, that serves over 2,500 students and families, and has received numerous awards. Was recognized by President Barack Obama at a White House ceremony for Champions of Change. Is married to attorney Marcia C. Hughes Grayson, the father of Garrett G. Grayson, Shanora Grayson, and the late Jerron X. Grayson, and also the grandfather of 5 grandchildren. So we also want to welcome Aerion Abney and Reverend Glenn Grayson to the Power Hour. Yeah, thank you so much. You both have very impressive resumes. I hope I hit all the major bullet points. And my apologies if I miss any major accomplishments. But thank you so much for joining us. Miracle, I'm going to pass it to you to begin our proceedings.
Yes, first to Arion and then to Reverend. Why are you in this race, and what do you hope your campaign accomplishes as you go door to door and meet people?
Foremost, thank you, Miracle and Kahari, for having me back on the show once again, and for always creating this platform for folks to be able to talk about the work that's happening in the communities. So thank you for that. I also want to really quickly just additionally send my condolences to the young man in Homewood as well for that tragedy that you guys brought up. So just really quickly, I'll be brief. My name is Arion Andrew Abney. I am the official Democratic nominee for state representative for the 19th district in this race. Many people who know me and know my background know that I am a social worker, just an untraditional social worker, where I've worked in politics before, I've worked in philanthropy, and now in the civil rights space. And for me, I've always seen politics and social work kind of being similar in the sense that they're both helping professions. And for me, as a social worker, I've always been taught the importance of advocating for the people that you represent. And I've done that throughout my career. And I see being an elected official, if they, elected officials, if they do their job the right way, as social workers with just a different level of influence. And so I see this being in elected office as an extension of my continued work in the community, advocating for others, and want to be in a position where I can advocate for my district and for the residents that I will represent. Really trying to use my position as a sphere of influence and a platform to change the realities of struggle for people here in Pittsburgh and Western PA. One of the biggest things, the reasons why I'm getting into this race is because as I knock on doors and I talk to folks and have conversations with people, you know, half the people feel like they've been left out and left behind in this new Pittsburgh, right? A lot of people don't feel that they've been engaged, their communities have been invested in over the past decades, to the point where they feel like they're not a part of it. And we've gotten to a position where, half the people live like the Flintstones and the other half live like the Jetsons. And a lot of times the people who live like the Flintstones look like me. And for me, I want to be able to move people beyond their current conditions and change those realities for folks. And I know as state representative, and having worked in as legislative assistant for a state representative, I understand how important that role is and that position is to help people move beyond their current conditions. So I'll pause there and pass over to Reverend. But again, thank you all for having me and allowing me this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Miracle and Kahari, for this opportunity to share my vision and hope as I vie for the position as a state rep of the 19th district. In that, I want the 19th district to know that I would represent the entire district. I'm concerned about the heart, the mind, the soul of the entire district and the needs of the district. I come running because I really have a proven record of servanthood. I've been on the ground running as an advocate, as a social justice person from the time I arrived here as a pastor. I take on the theme of Charles Wesley, who said that the world is my parish. And since I've been here, not only has the Hill District been my parish, but the entire Pittsburgh community has been my parish. I've served on so many boards and organizations. I've been here and available, hands-on. I've been in the fight when it comes time for a rally, comes time for standing up for the injustices, for the marginalized people. Reverend Glenn Garrett Grayson has been front and center throughout the years. I didn't start running. I have a proven record of making a difference, of impact, of being compassionate, of making change, to standing up against injustices. I have been there and will continue to be there. I feel that in Harrisburg, I can take it to another level and serve the community and the city on a greater plane. I bring my education, I bring my career, I bring the boards I served on, I bring my history, I bring my passion. I am a fighter and I'm here to make a difference. And so I'm excited to represent the 19th district and would love to serve with them in Harrisburg on May 17th. I believe the people who've seen my work, who experienced my work, who know me, will come out in large numbers and elect Glenn Grayson as their next state representative.
Thank you both. My first question, we'll start with Reverend Grayson and go to Aerion. You talk about a unique quality that you bring to this race that you would bring, to the position of state representative. That's for both of you, but we'll start with Reverend Grayson first.
My unique quality is my passion for people, my passion for change, my passion for making a difference, my passion for standing up against so many of the injustices of this city. Pittsburgh has been slated as the most livable city, but it has not been the most livable city for all. And I pray that with hard work and connections and relationships, I will help change that paradigm to make this city more livable for Black, brown, and marginalized people of all levels. People, like you said, need to feel like they're wanted, that they're included, they belong. And I believe I know there's a lot of work to be done. And I feel that I'm competent and able to make that difference and bring that uniqueness. I'm able to work across political lines. I know that it's a predominantly Republican Senate, but I believe that I have the gifts and the talents to break barriers and make a difference. And those are the strengths I bring to the table.
Thank you. Aerion?
I would say coalition building has been really a part of my career that I've been doing for multiple years. I understand that being a state representative, there's no such thing as a one-person army. I will not be able to solve all the problems and the issues in our communities by myself. In order to actually see some progress and some change in our neighborhoods, we need to work together. We need to work collectively. And so I've recently in the voting rights space have worked to build coalitions of organizations that care about voting rights, that care about people's access to the ballot. And I've led over 30 groups and organizing to push the County Board of Elections in the 2020 election going into the general to actually have drop boxes and early voting sites. So those things that we saw in the November election in 2020, I was part of an organization that led the effort to actually make that happen in Allegheny County. So I have a proven sort of experience and track record of bringing organizations and individuals together to build coalitions to actually get the changes that we want to see. And then I'll also add my political experience, my political background. I've served as an elected official in the past as a committee person for the 21st Ward, 4th District in Manchester. I've worked as a legislative assistant in the 19th District in the past, so I'm very familiar with all the neighborhoods, with all the communities and the issues, as well as I've been up to Harrisburg. I understand sort of how the dynamics of Harrisburg works, the different departments, the different committees, and how important it is to find the resources in Harrisburg and bring them back to the district. And on top of that, I've gotten endorsed and supported by a lot of elected officials, both at the state level and the local level. So I already go into this with a lot of support from other elected officials that we have to partner with on all levels of government to actually bring the change that we want to see in our communities.
Miracle, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, so my next question is going to be to you, Aerion, then to you, Reverend. What are some of the important issues that you see impacting the people of the 19th, and what can be done at the state level to address these issues? You talk about going door to door and seeing people. So what are some of the issues that are being raised?
The issues I'm seeing just a lack of access to opportunities. And what does that look like specifically? For me, it looks like housing. It looks like quality housing and housing justice. We know that after we looked at the most recent census in 2020 and how redistricting played out, a lot of the issues in which the maps looked differently in Allegheny County is because Pittsburgh has lost a large population of folks over the past decade, particularly Black and brown folks who have left. And there's multiple reasons why that has happened. Education, people leave the city for education reasons, transportation, but also housing. We've had over the past decade or so or plus just not the greatest housing policies that have been in place that have made it not affordable for people to be able to live here. We have essentially ethnically cleansed our neighborhoods through the means of economics. Because people's rent goes up or people's mortgage or their taxes go up because they can't be able to afford it and their income stays the same. And so for me, I want to be able to push forward from a state perspective, anti-displacement strategies that we can put into our policies, our programming, and our planning that says, hey, if we are going to build, we're going to build or tear down a unit that has 100 affordable housing units in it, that we have to rebuild 100 affordable housing units. And I know that as state representative, any folks that want to do major development projects, I have 3 of the largest major development projects in my district, over in the Lower Hill District, over in Hazelwood, Amano Green site, and over here in Manchester where I live. All of those developers that want to do housing and commercial development, they need to come to the state representative to get state tax credits or to get some type of grants or resources to be able to pay for that. And my thing is, we're not going to approve that. We're not going to support that. We're not going to push that forward unless they are really, truly committed to doing quality, affordable housing so that the people who live in this community can stay in this community. So that's going to be a big one. The second one is we have a lot of people who are paying rent that have landlords that are slum landlords. We need to do a better job at holding our landlords accountable for ensuring that our folks aren't living where there's mold growing in the place where they live, assure that there aren't infestation of rats and insects and things like that. That's a real problem for people, the quality of life. And then the last thing that I'll say is the issue is just jobs. When we talk about these major multi-million-dollar development projects that are coming to my district, they're going to bring jobs with them. And so we don't want to see people from out of the state or out of the region coming in and getting those jobs once, during construction and post-construction. We want to make sure that people who are in our community have access to those jobs, and a living wage job, and a job that can be able to take care of people's families. So that's big for me, is connecting people to resources, connecting people to jobs, connecting people to good housing and education as well.
Reverend?
Some of the same issues, but my heart really goes out around safety. My heart goes out to a young man who lost his life at 15, but in the last few days, in a week, we've had 4 murders. A 15-year-old in Homewood, a 57-year-old lady, Pat, was died, as well as a 23-year-old young man in Mount Washington, as well as someone on Carrick died last night, was killed. We have to find a way to address the murders and the safety of communities, as well as just the way we have to create legislation that will protect citizens at large. Very concerned about what happens. We have to look at the public safety. We have to look at how dollars are spent with the police department and how we balance it out with programs that will make a difference, that will balance out ways where people can survive, that people want to wake up for a reason to go to work. And when they go to work, secondly, they need to be able to go to work to a livable wage. So many people today are working still at $7, $9, $10 an hour, at minimum a livable wage of $15 an hour. So I support livable wage. I support the labor unions who work so hard to make sure people have a way of survive, that they could acquire and buy a home and live the American dream. We live in a city like Pittsburgh where the American dream is not for everybody. We have to find a way to work towards a livable wage, that everyone has an equal playing ground to equity and housing and a chance to succeed and live the American dream. On that same note, after housing also is a main issue, I concur also in terms of where people can live safely in a community where right now they're being pushed out of their community because of the rising of rent and they don't own their properties. We have to be able to balance that out. And so do some of the things in terms of education. We have to figure out how we make education equitable. It is not. I live in the Hill District where it's not equitable. We got to find a way we have trained and tenured educators who can come in are mandated to teach our children that we have balance. Our children should be able to achieve the American dream, be able to grow and to learn the same way, to have the same resources as some of the other schools. I'm pro equity in schools. Our children, many times, I serve a program where the kids had to walk from almost a mile away, kindergarten, first grade. My program provided now at least a bus service. We gotta think outside the box. We pick up kids and we drop them off at Wild and Miller because the danger they have walking through communities. We have to make a difference. We have to support real programs and make sure they're accountable, that when these vendors come in advertising jobs today are real jobs. They're looking to employ and hire people, make a difference. The other day there was a job fair at the Hill House, and I made sure several young people and adults went to that job fair for opportunity. I followed back up to make sure those are real jobs. Personally, I developed a program that went from half a dozen employees, and now we employ over 60 people with a livable wage. We have to make a difference also. So through my program, we have 60 adults who are making livable wage, who's working every day, bringing home income to support their families. That's what we have to do. I have a proven record of making a difference, not just talk, but through action of holding the people accountable, for pushing for proper salaries that people can have, who can live a peaceful, happy life and serve an American dream. So I'm really passionate about that. I'm passionate about making sure that our people are not pushed out of communities and that they can stay and live in their homes in different parts of the city. And that's many of my concerns as relates to being a legislator.
Thank you for that. My next question is about where you draw inspiration from, and we'll start with Reverend Grayson. And the question is, can you name a political, civic, social, or historical leader that you draw inspiration from?
Good.
In that area.
There's so many, but come to mind right now is U.S. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. I believe that he says, and I concur, I believe that American dream isn't real for anyone unless it is real for everyone. And that's my mantra. And like him, I dedicate my life to fighting for those who are left out, left behind, or left without, and I plan to be their voice. I have always been the voice. I've always advocated. I've always been present. I've always been hands-on. I was particularly moved by his voice as it relates to the Supreme Court hearing the committee as he stood up for Ketanji Brown Jackson with some passion and conviction. So he is really right now kind of my mentor in terms of looking at someone who's compassionate, who's bright, who's gifted, who's talented, who's concerned, who's hands-on, and who don't mind vocally making a difference and standing up for justice and right.
Thank you, Ariana.
My initial knee-jerk reaction would have been, but the first time I ever voted was in 08 for Obama when I was in college. So that was really inspiring for me. But I think more recently, the person that has really inspired me in watching his transformation over the years has been Shine Barrow, who is the congressperson in Belize. So I mean, I grew up, I'm a 90s baby. So I remember, listening to Diddy and Bad Boys and listening to Shine, and I loved it. And then, as you kind of seeing people progress and people develop and the things that he's dealt with in his life, in the court cases and being, sent out of the country, and for him to sort of change and transfer his life to now being a representative for his country and the humanitarian efforts that he's done, and gotten a lot of his people who are back home in the States to come to Belize and to support his community. Like, just to see the evolution of a human being in their 20s, which I remember being in my 20s and now being in my 30s, and now seeing a grown person go from one end of the spectrum to now being a politician, elected official, and really trying to get back to the community. Sean Barrow is just somebody that I really, really have drawn inspiration from.
Thank you. Back to you, Miracle.
Yes, and I'm going to change up the questions because we mentioned it at the top of the hour. We know the legalization effort has been a very contentious one here in Pennsylvania, and with this election, there's the possibility that this election may allow it to become legalized in Pennsylvania. What is your position on the legalization of adult use cannabis, and what other requirements would you make for the legalization issue? Starting with you, Aerion, then you, Reverend.
Yeah, I'm 100% for the legalization of adult use cannabis, with the caveat that we want to make sure that we go back retroactively for the folks who are currently in jail or in prison who have been impacted by past laws, that they get some reprieve and some exoneration for that once we pass it. So when it comes across my desk, that bill comes across my desk, I will be supportive of it in that shape or form, for multiple reasons. Obviously, to help Black and Brown folks who have been penalized by that for so many years, but also you look at it, it's a way to bring in resources and taxable income, taxable money back into our state coffers to be able to push back out into different programs, as well as, one of the biggest things that people don't always think about when you legalize this is that you're creating jobs, right? You are literally creating businesses. Now we do need to do a good job at making sure that the companies that get the licenses to grow and to sell it, that we actually expand it to Black-owned companies and businesses, and don't just let the political insiders get those access to those contracts or those permits and things like that. So it's about creating those jobs, not only for being able to grow and to sell the marijuana, but you're also going to have jobs for security, because somebody got to make sure that people don't break into those buildings to steal any of those things. So you have a multitude of different avenues of resources and income that can be generated, not just for individuals and companies, but also for the state to be able to put tax dollars back to use into our Commonwealth. So fully 100% supportive of it in that respect.
This country has made billions of dollars on the illegal use of drugs, where we have put Black and brown people and others behind bars for years. Injustice in terms of the equity, in terms of sentencing. So I'm very much in favor of the criminalization of marijuana. I think it is a new season where it would indeed bring tax dollars to cities and states who can make a difference. And I also believe that we have to find a system that is fair and equitable again, where people of color can also benefit from the legalization. I think it's there's so many different ways we can do it, not only in security, but definitely in terms of opportunity, in terms of just a safe way of making this available and for people of choice. I just think we do need to go back and fix the records and sponge the records of so many people who are in jail, who's been in jail for these same type of charges. We got to make it right. We have to fix the system, and this is a fair way of doing it. I support Jake Wheatley, who pushed it for years and finally has come to surface, and it's well timed. And so I would definitely stand for that as elected as a state legislator.
Kahari?
Yeah, thanks, Miracle. My question is about regional issues. We talked about some of the specific issues to the 19th district, and you touched on some of them because they're pertinent to the 19th district as well as many other parts of the region. But I know you're both well aware that there have been these ongoing discussions about regional equity or regional inequity, and you both have touched on certain levels of inequity and how it impacts residents of the 19th district. Knowing that for African American and other communities of color, there are inequities in this region. Starting with Reverend Grayson, and then to Aerion. What are things you believe you can do as a state representative to address some of those regional equity issues that impact not only the 19th district, but districts similar and communities similar to the Hill District and the North Side throughout our region?
I go back really to the Hill District, where, again, before my time, where they basically destroyed the Hill community. 25,000 people lost their homes and to build the arena. That was never really anything but the civic arena built on there. I stood in front of the arena, fighting and demanding for equity and for fairness. We crafted one of the first CBA agreements to make sure that dollars and cents came back to the community. Not enough, but again, for the first time, we fought, we stood up, we rallied to make a difference. I will continue to do that, not only in the Hill District, but like we indicated, there are other areas that are being developed, downtown, uptown, Hazelwood, North Side, where every situation should have a community benefits agreement. It's time that we hold people accountable, that you can't make hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars and not be fair to the entire community. We need jobs, we need opportunity, not just at the beginning, but throughout, on all levels, top management. We have to take a stand. I will continue to take that stand on a regional level to hold the system accountable for the injustices and inadequacies of our community. And that's kind of what I know and what I will continue to stand up and represent everywhere I go. We need a system that's fair and equitable for everyone, that we all can live this American dream, that this could indeed be a most livable city for everybody.
A few things on this topic. I really appreciate this conversation and this topic that's being brought up. And so for me, as a state rep, I understand that regionally there are a lot of opportunities for folks to sit on some very influential boards and commissions. I know Reverend Grayson does sit on a pretty influential board or commission here in Pittsburgh in the region, and so giving people access to those opportunities who historically have not been able to sit on those decision making tables to ensure that there is proper representation, because in those meetings, folks are making decisions about resources that are being allocated into our region, right? And so if you don't have somebody that looks like you or that understands your interests at that decision-making table, it's likely that you're going to continue to have the same cycle of a lack of investment from these institutions that have a lot of resources. So trying to find a more strategic and better way to say, hey, okay, there's a position open on this board, whether it is a public board or even if it's a nonprofit board or a business board, to say, hey, Aerion, do you have folks that can sit on this board that can help move our board or commission in the right direction? And me being able, as a connector, to be able to identify the folks in these different regions and these communities to be able to have access to those opportunities. And then secondly, I will, when we talk about things about equity and we talk about trying to make sure that we have greater access for different resources for folks, I think about things like transportation. And when we talk about the region, and we look at sort of how disconnected our transportation system is from Allegheny County to counties up north and counties up down south and all of Western PA, I would love to be able to promote. I know folks have talked about this for many years now. Kahar, you've probably been part of these conversations, having more of a Southwestern Pennsylvania Transportation Association, sort of similar to how they have in Eastern PA with SEPTA, because this will allow folks who are in like Duquesne or Rankin or Aliquippa, all these places that is difficult for them to get connected to resources in the city because transportation is not as easy as it could be. And being able to get other counties in Southwestern PA to understand the economic benefit of being able to have an improved, robust Western PA transportation system to allow Black and Brown folks to be able to get to school, to be able to get to work, to be able to get to a hospital easily, to be able to get their kids to school and things of that nature. That's really going to be important. So trying to help folks get access to better transportation. And then, the last thing that I will say when I think about equity and I think about inclusion is, how do we at a state level provide state contracts to minority and women-owned businesses to help them build their capacity, to help them build their bonding capacity if they're doing actual construction, or just to build their personal capacity to be able to hire locally, hire more staff. They need resources to be able to pay folks. And so I want to be able to go to the state and say, hey, there's this list of grants that are getting ready to come this fall, and I want to connect my minority and women-owned businesses and say, hey, you need to go apply for this grant, and I will provide you with a letter of support to help push that process along so that you can be able to build your capacity and you can hire more people as well.
Thank you. Back to you, Miracle.
Yes. I know we're wrapping up in a few minutes, so I'm going to do some more questions. We know Pennsylvania is one of the few states that does not offer gender non-discrimination protections that has a disparate impact on our LGBT, particularly people of trans experience. The governor has said that if a bill comes up, he'll support it. If the bill was, if you were in the position today, would you support gender non-discrimination? To you, Aerion, and then to you, Reverend Grant.
I've been on record saying that I'm supportive of the Fairness Act in Pennsylvania, and so that I've been supported and endorsed by the Steel City Stonewall Democrats, and which is a premier LGBTQIA organization here in the Pittsburgh region, and we've had multiple conversations about what that looks like to support things that the folks in their community really care about. And so, yes, I would be 100% supportive of it. But then it also goes back to my point in conversation about getting people on boards and commissions. I think there isn't a lot of great representation from folks from the LGBTQI plus community that are on these boards and commissions that can actually lend their voice to these important conversations. And so I want to work with folks in that community to be able to help to identify ways that we can get them these access to these opportunities.
There's no question I am in support of the LGBTQ community. Again, for justice for everyone in terms of equity, in terms of fairness. I love people. I believe in treating people right, meeting people where they are, regardless of their sexual orientation. And so I think it's very important that we make sure that everyone is included and supportive, especially also on boards and organizations. I serve on several boards, SEA board, the Pitcher Foundation board, United Way board, and I have used my voice to levy for fairness and opportunity for minorities and marginalized people. I go on record each meeting that I'm part of to make sure they're included. I send sometimes some proposals back to make sure it's inclusive of everyone. I will continue in that same vein to make sure there's fairness for all people, regardless of race, color, creed, or sexual orientation.
Thank you. My question is about voting rights. As we saw at the federal level, voting rights has stalled, and here at at the state level, there's challenges, to Act 77. I'm starting with Reverend Grayson and to Aerion Abney. How concerned are you, about voting rights being under attack in the state of Pennsylvania, and what things will you do as a state representative, to address, the current attacks on voting rights in Pennsylvania?
There's no question that the voting rights are under attack, where people are just almost pushed out or just encouraged to vote on so many different levels. I believe in the protection of voting rights. I believe that we should remove all barriers to voting registration, make casting a vote as easy as possible, protect the vote certification process, and pass state level voting right act to make sure that everyone is protected. As a race, as a people, as I study our history, for years we were treated the worst in terms of the opportunity to vote, and we fought as people, we fought as women, fought for the opportunity to vote, women's rights to vote. And I think today, in the 21st century, we have to work even harder to make sure that all rights are protected, that everyone has the opportunity to go to the poll and to vote for a choice of who they like as their candidate. I think we just need more systems to protect people for those voting rights and make sure that opportunities are given to all to vote.
This is sort of part and parcel of sort of my experience, my profession right now, and our organization was very instrumental back in 2019, getting Act 77 passed that allowed no excuse absentee voting here in Pennsylvania, which was a major win, and also really instrumental in post 2019 educating voters all across the Commonwealth about their new opportunity to be able to vote by mail. So I will continue to advocate for that. I will continue to work with the Department of State, who oversees elections in the Commonwealth, to make sure that we are preparing our county boards of elections for all the available ways in which they can expand access to the ballot, like drop boxes, like early voting. But then also, as a policymaker, we know that right now, sitting in the House is a bill named after the late K. Leroy Irvis to expand voting rights access in Pennsylvania. I will, on day one, support and co-sponsor that bill. I will also push for legislation to try to get same-day voter registration here in Pennsylvania, as well as to allow boards of elections to be able to do pre-canvassing, which is essentially allowing them to count ballots that are voting by mail. They don't have to wait until the day of the election to actually open them to prepare them to be counted for the day of the election. So this is really important because it helps with processing and making sure that we can get the results in a really fast and efficient way once the election is over. And so there's just a lot of work that we need to do around this topic. There are Republicans who are in office right now that are trying to circumvent the legislative process of actually trying to do a constitutional amendment to push for things like voter ID laws, because they know they can't pass it than the fact that we have a Democratic governor. And so I will push back against them. I will push back against their false narratives that they're claiming about the election was fraudulent or that it was rigged. This is just misinformation that they continue to push that is just detrimental to our democracy. And we need leaders who understand what Act 77 is. We need leaders who understand what voting rights are. And we need leaders who can talk about it in an intelligent way to educate folks about why this is important and why they should be prepared to actually cast their ballot in each and every election, not just on presidential elections. And that will be that person.
Thank you so much. And I believe this may be my final question for you two before we wrap. This is again a very historic, unprecedented time for Pennsylvania's, and so there's been a lot of changes happening with electoral politics. And so, as you mentioned, with the change in voting rights, there's also this pressure to get legislation passed immediately. And so, as you're going out campaigning and canvassing, how are you taking with you the need for change, but also managing expectations, seeing how, depending on what happens on not only May 17th, but in November, you may not have the full backing to pass this legislation immediately.
That's a great point. The way that the current state legislature is set up, there's going to be more than likely at the end of the general election this year, and there's going to be still a majority Republican in both the House and the Senate. And so it makes it difficult for any folks who are Democrats like us to be able to get them to support any legislation that we're trying to do. Hopefully back in 2024, we can sort of flip the House is what is being projected potentially. But we will continue to push forward. We will continue to introduce legislation. We will continue to have conversations with Republicans who, a lot of times the moral imperative to do the right thing is not enough motivation for them to actually support our ideas. Sometimes we have to understand it's the economic imperative. So if we can show them that the bills that we are introducing can have a positive economic impact on our Commonwealth, I think that is a good space to have conversations. And so I also tell folks when I knock on the doors is that, if waiting for government to solve all of our problems in our communities is very wishful thinking. Like government is designed to be sort of a slow process. There's checks and balances to it, and so it doesn't really naturally happen pretty quickly. And so we need to figure out other alternative ways to be able to solve the problems in our communities. And it's not just through policy. It can be about access to these opportunities that I spoke about earlier, about providing grants, providing resources, partnering with our foundation community to give grants, partnering with our for-profit businesses to provide support in our communities, and our nonprofit social service agency. So all of these things have to work together, not just thinking about just the passing policy, but how can all the other social and economic factors that impact people's quality of life come together, and I can sort of lead that effort or be a partner in that effort to make that happen in the 19th district.
I'll answer that by saying that power is organized people, organized money. I think it's important that regardless of who has the strength in the Senate or the State House, that organized people can make a difference. As I knock on doors, I am pushing to organized people to lend their voice to their issues, to come out in number, to stand up and make a difference. So I do think that in spite of, the Senate and House not being balanced, I think for several reasons that I think I have the strength and the gifts and the talents to work across party lines. And sometimes you have to give and take to make that happen. But I think you continue to fight. You present your arguments, you present the issues, you present this quality legislation that we pray that would turn the hearts of those who may be cold. I think, again, organized power in terms of dollars, in terms of the foundations that are in this community. I think there's a lot of power in Pittsburgh. I think we can change the paradigm of so many things if we all work together. As your legislator of the 19th district, I feel I have the influence and connections and relationships to influence, to make change, to make power on the local level and the state level. So I look forward to that opportunity as I'm elected on May 17th to make that difference.
Thank you, Reverend. We have one last question, and then we'll go to final remarks. And this is a question that Miracle developed like a year and a half ago, and we try to always end on this note. And it's the question, "What brings you joy?" So we'll start with Reverend Grayson and go to Aerion Abney. What brings you joy?
What brings me joy is making a difference, having impact, being part of change and making change, to not sit behind a desk, but to come put my hands to the work, to avail myself to the needs, to stand up against injustices, like I've said all the time, and make a difference and to see that change. What brings me joy is to see young people sometime who are going astray, and through my KS program, put my arms around them and give them another direction. That's even this next week, we're taking a dozen kids to Puerto Rico to expose them to culture and culture exchange. It's those things give me joy. Having a strong family, having a strong faith, having to be respected as a citizen of this community, to come here and to make impact for people to know and see you, whether it's Pookie uh, or the mayor, and they know you by name because they've seen your work, they've seen you make the difference, they've seen your impact, they've seen your compassion, and they see your love. I've got a lot of awards, but awards don't move me, but I'm honored that people from the White House to um, the smallest organization in this community have seen and honored me from a proven record of making a difference. That gives me joy in my heart to know that I didn't start running yesterday or when Jake Wheatley decided not to run. I've been in this work um, with my heart, my body, my soul, my being. It is my DNA. It is who I am, and I am a change maker. I am impactful. I am passionate. I'm a fighter, and so that gives me the most joy knowing that I have made a difference. Trust. I know I've made a difference on the lives of so many people on so many levels, and that brings me joy and satisfaction.
Thank you, Ariana.
Joy, my wife Tamara and my two boys, Arius and Amari. Every time I look at their face, I see myself in them. And being a parent is the greatest promotion I've ever had in my life. No matter what my career is, being a parent will always be the best piece of that. And just being having rough days and being out in the community, and sometimes people don't always agree with you, and they let you know it, and they'll you knock on the doors and they'll tell you about yourself, or you get on social media and people have comments about you that they don't necessarily agree with you, and sometimes that can be tough. But at the end of the day, I get to come home to my family and I get to see their smiling faces. And my kids, they don't know about that stuff. They don't care about that stuff. They just want to see me and see me happy. So they give me joy. And then also being able to give back to a city that has given so much to me, right? I came here as a 17-year-old kid, didn't really know much of anything. And, sometimes Pittsburgh can be tough in terms of accepting people who aren't born and raised here. And I think they have adopted me and they have taken me in and welcomed me here. I've always had, been fortunate enough to have a great education, was able to have gainful employment since I graduated. I became a first-time homeowner at the age of 25, which I couldn't have been able to do if I was back home in Philadelphia. And so, I've gotten a great network. And so this city in this region has given so much to me. It brings me joy in my professional career over the past 12 years to be able to have given back to this city. And I see my opportunity as state representative as an extension of me giving back to a city that has given so much to me, because that's what's going to continue to give me joy.
Thank you. And before we get into final remarks, we'll start with Reverend Grayson. Actually, we'll start with Aerion and then Reverend Grayson. Just real quickly, how can folks get in touch with your campaigns?
You can check out our website. It's votearionabney.com, as well as you can check us out on all major social media platforms. So we are on Facebook, Aerion Andrew Abney, as well. You can check Aerion Andrew Abney on Twitter, as well as on Instagram also.
You can contact me at website voteforgraysonforpa.org. You could stop by the campaign office at 1300 Brighton Road or call us at 412-785-5735. That's 412-785-5735. You can reach us graysonforpa@gmail, or you can send donations to Grayson for State House, P.O. Box 53134. That's P.O. Box 53134, Pittsburgh, PA 15219. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll start with Aerion, and then we'll go to Reverend Grayson, final closing remarks.
Well, thank you again, Kahari and Miracle, for having me back on the show. I wanted to just quickly remind everyone that also tomorrow, April 5th, is a special election for the 19th district, and I will be on that ballot. So if you haven't already voted in the special election, April 5th, we want to make sure that people know about that, as well as I will be on the ballot for the May 17th primary as well. Both races, tomorrow, the April 5th, and the May 17th primary, I am the Democratic Party nominee from the committee who have endorsed me for this race, as well as several other organizations and elected officials, all the way from our school board members to our county council leaders, to our city council leaders, to our state leaders, to our state house leader, Joanna McClinton. And so we've just gotten a lot of great support and momentum from this campaign. This campaign is really about ushering in a new era of opportunities for folks. As I mentioned on the onset, we're trying to expand access to opportunities and resources for people who have felt like they've never had them in the past. I have done this throughout my whole professional career, and I will continue to do this as your next state representative. So I look forward for the opportunity to engage with you all, and I humbly ask for your vote and your support. Both on Tuesday, April 5th, as well as Tuesday, May 17th. Thank you.
Thank you, Miracle and Kari, for this opportunity to come before you. It's been a wonderful day. I solicit again the support of the people on May 17th during the primary. My name is on the ballot for May 17th, and I believe I will be the people's choice on that day. On tomorrow, you still have the opportunity, though there's one name on the ballot, to write in Glenn G. Grayson as your candidate. So again, you can still show your support and who you believe can represent this 19th district the best. The race is not given to the swift or the battle to the strong, but he who endures to the end, and I'm in it to the end. I've given my heart, my body, my soul to this work. I believe I know I can make a difference and represent the entire 19th district in Harrisburg. Again, you can write in my name on tomorrow, Glenn G. Grayson, on May 17th. You can cast your vote for Glenn G. Grayson as your next state rep of the 19th district. Thank you for your time and consideration. And I love the city, the impact the city has made on my life, and the difference I've made on the lives of others. Thank you.
And thank you so much. Two very impressive individuals. I have a ton of respect for Aerion Abney and Reverend Glenn Grayson. Thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck tomorrow, and best of luck on May 17th. We'll be in touch, and we'll continue to watch how this race unfolds. But thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate
it. And again, Aerion Abney and Reverend Glenn Grayson joining us for a very, I thought it was a very powerful conversation. I really enjoyed this one. I enjoy all of them. All of our candidate forums, are like children. You love them all. But I thought this was a very impactful conversation from two serious people that are, very, very committed to running. So, as we go to May 17th, I think this is going to be one of those races to really watch in Western PA. And I'm glad Aerion did mention, and they both did mention, that for those in the old 19th district, which was the district represented by Jake Wheatley, Northside, Hill District, Oakland, Hazelwood, parts of the Southern Hilltops, Belsuver. You will be voting tomorrow in the special election. As they said, Aerion Abney is the Democratic nominee, and Reverend Grayson is seeking support as a write-in candidate. But in 5 weeks or 6 weeks, there will be another election, May 17th. And that was mainly what tonight's discussion was about. They will both be on the ballot, as candidates running as Democrats in the Democratic primary in the new 19th district, which has less of the Hill District and more West End, more North Side, and I believe, continue to Southern Hilltops and Hazelwood. So when you go in and vote tomorrow, just don't be confused that just Aerion, is on the ballot. The race will still go on to May 17th. I know it sounds crazy. There's an election tomorrow, and then there's an election in 6 weeks, but that is the process, when seats are vacated. And for our viewers who are in the east end of the city in Wilkinsburg, that there's also a special election in the 24th legislative district with Martell Covington and Todd Koger running in that race tomorrow. So yes, there will be elections in 2 parts of the city, including Wilkinsburg. Don't get confused. There will be another election next month with a lot of the same players involved. So thanks again to Aerion Abney and Reverend Gwen Grayson for a fantastic conversation. And Miracle, do you have any updates or any final words before we bid adieu to next Monday?
Yes, also want to point out people on this 116th also have a special election. So again, it's going to be a long, a long electoral season. We are still here reaching out to candidates. We have started to send out our questionnaires. So please double check. I know sometimes our Kari and I's names being a little different. Sometimes your blocker gets it and throws it out, but please go and make sure if you're running for office, you're double checking your emails. We're sending out, starting to send out those questionnaires. The second thing is, please make sure you are registered to vote. And I've been telling people on Friday, go and double check your polling places to make sure you know where you're going to be able to vote May 17th. For those of us who are, like myself, voting tomorrow, still make sure you go and double check your polling place because it may have changed just because of everything that's been happening as well. And for those of you who are running unaffiliated, meaning you're third party, you're running as an independent, as a reminder, after May 17th, we'll be reaching out to you to do the forms and the Senate 8 sit downs. Just because of the way Pennsylvania election law operates, you're not considered a candidate unless you have been approved to be on the ballot. And again, we know there was some mistakes made just because of the delays in maps this year. And there are some people who had filed but did get the signatures. And so we just want to make sure it's clear that we're going to include all candidates once the final maps and the final ballots are out there. So again, please make sure you're getting your paperwork in because if you're not on the final list, we can't reach out. So thank you all so much, and we hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks so much. See you next Monday. Good night.